Alright, let's talk about the one lens to rule them all. For the past 6 months, I've had the privilege of using the XCD 35-100E, Hasselblad's brand new all-in-one zoom lens. With it, I've captured commercial campaigns, a family wedding high up in the Alps, and my photography workshop in southern Spain, all without ever swapping a lens. And honestly, it performed brilliantly in every single situation. But here's the thing, after half a year of relying entirely on the zoom, I found myself facing a difficult decision. Because what makes this lens so incredibly capable might also be the reason why I don't want to use it all the time. If you're new here, my name is Albrecht Voss. I'm a full-time architectural photographer from Germany and Hasselblad Master winner, with more than 15 years of experience in the field. On this channel, I share the gear, techniques, and stories behind my daily work. When I first took the lens out of its box, I was blown away. This is exactly how I've always imagined a true medium format lens should feel. Compared to its prime siblings in the V series, the new 35-100 feels substantial. With its 90mm diameter, it sits in your hand with real presence. You immediately get the sense that you're holding a piece of equipment built to create something great. The craftsmanship is top tier. Both the focus and zoom rings move smoothly, with just the right amount of resistance. The all-metal housing feels incredibly solid, and the engravings and control layout instantly reminds you of Hasselblad's iconic V-series lenses. The only thing I truly miss is the focus clutch for quickly switching to manual focus. What's really impressive though is the weight. Despite covering a medium format sensor, it's almost identical in size and weight to a Canon RF 24-70 f2.8. We are talking 894 grams versus 900 grams for the Canon, or over 1000 grams for the more limited Virginian GF 45-100mm. On YouTube, you'll find all kinds of claims about the focal length conversion of this lens. That might be because Hasselblad's own datasheet states that the actual focal range is 36-97mm. Converted to full frame terms, that makes it roughly a 28-76mm lens with an effective aperture of 2.2-3.2. Compared to the classic Holy Trinity 24-70mm, you lose about 4mm on the wide end, which is noticeable, but you gain 6mm on the telephoto side, which I find very useful. Among medium format competitors, the Fujifilm system has nothing quite like the 35-100 f2.8-f4. Fuji offers neither such a broad focal range nor a zoom lens with an aperture faster than f4. It's interesting to see how the maximum aperture of the XCD 35-100 changes across the zoom range and how it compares to existing Hasselblad primes. Starting at f2.8 at 35mm, the lens stops down almost immediately to f3.2 at around 38mm. Making it about 2/3 of a stop slower than the XCD 38V. The next transition happens at 55mm, where the aperture narrows to f3.5, which is about 1/3 of a stop slower than the XCD 75P. The final step occurs at 70mm, reaching f4, which is about 1/3 of a stop slower than the XCD 75P. And as you'd expect, Hasselblad didn't cut corners when it comes to the shutter either. The built-in leaf shutter fires anywhere from a 4,000th of a second all the way up to 68 minutes. Combined with Hasselblad's low base ISO of 50 or 64, that means even under harsh sunlight, you can still get beautiful blurred backgrounds when shooting wide open. But enough of the technical talk. So, how does the XCD 35-100E actually perform in real-world photography? During the campaign shoot for the 20-35E, I constantly struggled with the lens feeling too wide for my taste. With the 35-100 though, I immediately felt at home. It combines my two favorite focal lengths from the 38V and the 90V. And that's exactly how I used it during the first 2 months. always at the ends of the zoom range, either for wide establishing shots or for tighter details. For my campaign images during the Hasselblad X2D II launch, the lens's flexibility was a huge advantage. The light and weather changed from minute to minute, but the 35-100 allowed me to keep up and build a really diverse portfolio of images. By the way, if you're unsure how to set up your Hasselblad X2D or X2D II for the best efficiency and image quality, make sure to check out my new Hasselblad X2D setup guide on my website. Here I walk you through every step to get the most out of your camera. On very windy days, I noticed that the lens, when fully extended, picks up noticeably more movement than the smaller primes. Whenever possible, I position myself as a windbreak in front of the camera to stabilize it. Speaking of windy conditions, in September our family gathered for my brother-in-law's wedding at the Kristallhütte in the Zillertal Alps. Since they didn't hire a separate photographer, I offered to document the ceremony and take some couple portraits. Honestly, in that scenery, I wouldn't have been able to resist pressing the shutter anyway. It was also the perfect opportunity to test the new X2D II's autofocus together with the 35-100. And wow, what an experience! From close-up portraits to sweeping landscapes to detailed shots of the rings. This setup created a real flow state. In about 40 minutes, I shot 300 images. Not a single one was out of focus. The continuous autofocus with subject detection locked on the couple perfectly, and I could just zoom, move freely across the alpine meadows, and focus entirely on my composition. Once you understand how to balance focal length and subject distance, you can get beautiful bokeh at any zoom settings. The kind that keeps the environmental context but still isolates your subject in a natural way. Even during the ceremony, where there was no second chance for any shot, the 35-100 and X2D II performed flawlessly. The images are quite personal, so I won't share them here on YouTube. But from wide room shots and group photos to small details and portraits, the XCD 35-100E showed its greatest strength: flexibility without the slightest compromise in image quality. For my most recent photo project, portability was the top priority. When I traveled to my photography workshop in southern Spain, I went with carry-on only, no backpack. Clothing, camera gear, and my laptop for the educational editing sessions all had to fit inside the new Peak Design Roller Pro, and a medium-sized camera cube as my personal item. That meant no tripod, no extra lenses, just the Hasselblad and the 35-100, and my set of ND and polarizing filters. Even with such a minimal setup, the camera started to feel heavier and heavier throughout the day in the late summer heat, around 30 degrees Celsius. It wasn't unbearable, but when walking, the camera, hanging from the shoulder strap, pressed noticeably against my hip. I definitely felt the 500-gram weight difference to the 38V prime lens I usually use. The upside? I didn't have to worry about dust on the sensor once. A zoom lens that you never take off is probably the best dust protection you can get for a Hasselblad camera. And again, the flexibility of the system really shines. Long exposures up to 1 second handheld. Architectural photography. Detail shots in a botanical garden. A spontaneous portrait session with an influencer at the beach. Everything was possible. Image quality, as expected, was fantastic. Even wide open, details are razor sharp right to the edges. I didn't notice any chromatic aberrations in everyday use, and the slight vignetting that appears wide open is not noticeable at my normal aperture working range between f8 to f11. Even for astrophotography, the lens is also surprisingly capable. At 38mm and f2.8, it performs really well. To keep the stars sharp, I wouldn't expose longer than about 8 seconds on the X2D at 35mm to get those pointy stars. Combined with ISO 3200 and noise cancellation in the editing phase, you can capture a lot of detail in the landscape, even under a moonless sky. like this image from El Tocal National Park. The workshop participants were also pretty impressed with how the new lens handled, to the point where I occasionally had trouble getting it back from them. By the way, my new 2026 workshop dates are now live on my website. If you would like to experience the rich history and warmth of southern Spain while improving your skills with the Hasselblad X system, then check them out now. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, you get updates about upcoming courses, photo trips, and videos, especially all things Hasselblad. You'll find the links down below in the video description. Let's come back to the hesitation I mentioned at the beginning of this video. After all the praise I've given the XCD 35-100E, you might think there's nothing to criticize about this lens. And honestly, there isn't. I genuinely believe the 35-100 could become Hasselblad's best-selling lens. It's versatile, optically outstanding, and smaller, lighter, and more affordable than buying 2 or more separate primes. Still, after 6 months of shooting exclusively with zoom, I'm really looking forward to getting back to my 38V and 90V primes. My approach to photography is very structured. As you've probably seen in my videos, I usually work on defined projects with a clear visual language and a systematic way of composing each image, including how I use focal length as a creative tool. With the 35-100, I noticed that I started to just go with the flow, zooming instead of consciously choosing a focal length for its distinct visual character. Working with a prime helps me focus on my subject more intentionally and build a consistent visual language. That's something I've really missed over the past 6 months. That brings us to the conclusion of my thoughts on the Hasselblad XCD 35-100E. In terms of aperture, sharpness and image quality, this lens stands shoulder to shoulder with Hasselblad's prime lenses. And in some ways, it even surpasses them. Its advanced stepping autofocus motor and maximum shutter speed of a 4,000th of a second make it one of the most capable lenses in the system. Sure, it's not as light or compact as a single prime, of course, but compared to carrying 2 or more primes, it actually saves you weight, space, and money. You protect your sensor from dust by swapping lenses less often, you shoot faster and more flexibly, and you're simply better equipped to capture those fleeting moments that matter. This lens will be a reliable companion across a huge range of photography, from commercial and fashion work to reportage, travel, portrait, and product photography, except for macro. In those situations, you really won't miss having a prime lens. And if you pair the 35-100 with the 20-35E or the 25V, you've basically covered a focal length range that could serve you for a lifetime of photography. At the very peak of image quality, craftsmanship, and autofocus performance. But if you prefer the restrictions and the lighter, smaller form factor of a prime lens, this zoom still fits beautiful into Hasselblad's lineup. You can complement it with lightweight lenses like the XCD 28P or specialists like the XCD 120 macro. And let's not forget, Hasselblad described the 35-100E as the second lens in their holy trinity. Many of us are still waiting for a true telephoto to complete this lineup. Right now though, I'm shooting with a completely different kind of Hasselblad lens. One you might not have even heard of, but that's a story for another video. If you want to know more about that, you know the drill. Hit the like button, ring the subscribe and smash the bell. You know what I mean. I hope this information was helpful for you. If you still have questions, let's continue the conversation down in the comments below. Until next time, and as always, have fun shooting.